very much for attending and welcome. Happy New Year to everybody. I just want to give you a quick update. We may or may not be canceling the meeting in May. The May 5th meeting will be moved. I'm not sure exactly to where. Unfortunately, it seems like every week after that might be a problem in May, so we might actually have our first June meeting for June 2nd, but I'll keep you updated on that. But right now, the May 5th meeting is canceled, and we're going to be rescheduling that. I'll get back to you as soon as I can with that information. And let's move on to Mrs. Morales and the gifted and talented identification.
Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Wendy Morales. I'm the supervisor of Social Studies and Technology, K-12 for the district. I'm also a parent in the district. And I'm here today on behalf of Jessica Shaw Alphone, who, along with me, we kind of oversee the Gifted and Talented program. She oversees more of the placement and identification of gifted and talented students, and I oversee the educational technology specialists who are here today to share kind of a day in the life of the gifted and talented student. And together we kind of have been, developing this over the past little over a year now, year and a half. And hopefully you'll get a glimpse into kind of what some of the things that the kids are working on now throughout the district. I know many of you probably saw some of the projects last year at our innovation fair, but this being year 2, I feel like we've perfected the program even more, and hopefully, if you do have any questions today, hopefully if I can't answer them, we will definitely have my paper and pen ready, and I will have Mrs. Alphone get back to you if there's anything I can't answer regarding the identification process. So I'm going to get started with a brief overview of the program, and then our educational technology specialist, again, will go into the fun stuff. So we'll get started with kind of the overview. It's a K through 6 program, as you already know, because in 7 through 12 we have other opportunities for enrichment for our students with honors classes and AP classes and such. Within the structure of our program here, and kind of what makes us different than a lot of other districts, is that we allow our students to pursue their own high level and high interest projects. So they really drive the project themselves. It's not like a canned curriculum we're using where every child is learning about one thing for a month or 2 months. The kids are really identifying their own passions and interests through the help of their classroom teacher and our educational technology specialists. And the projects can vary. Some of the students want that finished end product, that tangible product that they want to share. Others kind of just want to explore and challenge themselves to try new things. For example, a lot of our students really enjoy coding. And in some cases, there's no real end product. They just want to keep moving up in their levels of their computer science knowledge and ability. So you're going to see a wide variety of different types of things, and we'll show you some videos today of the kids talking about what they are deciding to do for their projects this year. And sometimes projects change. The students start something, they realize, this isn't for me, or I thought this was going to be really cool or interesting, it's really not. And we allow them that flexibility to kind of, start over. And it's all about the opportunity for them to fail forward without that pressure of, the grade or anything like that. So as I said before, our ed tech specialists really facilitate this, but they do work in partnership with the classroom teachers. And students, like I said before, are given opportunities to share throughout the process, either sometimes just informally with each other or with the ed tech specialist or teacher. As I said before, many of them will participate in the innovation fair, and in some cases, especially where we have larger numbers of G&T students in certain buildings, we will have building-based kind of G&T or innovation type of fairs. So grade K through 2 was designed as a push-in program. So the ed techs will push into the classroom and really work with the students on their projects, but there are situations where they will pull the students out, especially in the beginning, because the students really need that kind of one-on-one assistance with identifying what they are in fact interested in, and a little bit of help with the research in the beginning. So again, you're going to see a combination of that push in and pull out for the K through 2. And the students are encouraged during the school day, even though the push-in or pull-out happens about once a week, they are encouraged to work on their projects, because sometimes these are the students that are done early with their center work, or whether it's the workshop model or the math centers, they're done early, so they're encouraged by their classroom teacher to work on their G&T project during those times. 3 through 6 is really a pull-out program, and again, they can work on it during the school day as well. And grade 6 students are pulled out 2 of the 3 marking periods from their advisory period. So that's usually how we work. Sometimes there will be situations where if students are working together, they may be occasionally pulled from like the study skills class or something like that if they need to maybe coordinate with a different teacher in the building or a specialist or a classmate that they are working with. So every year we do a screening, and that there are 2 different screening cycles. So we screen kind of late September, early October, and then the first cycle of the actual program occurs from October through January. So right about now, the students have identified what they're going to be working on. They've started researching. In some cases, they've actually started working on the actual project if they've decided to create something. And then the second cycle usually happens in January, is when Ms. Alphone kind of goes through the data and then identifies any other students who may be eligible from February through June to kind of join into the program at that time. And again, it's kind of, every year it's a fresh year. So every year we look at the data and we determine if students are going to continue in the program, or maybe they're not, but maybe the second cycle of that year they'll be back in. It's really kind of a process where we kind of see how the students are doing and make decisions with the classroom teachers. So we use different measures, and I'll show you the next slide, and I can share this with all of you later because I know it's a lot of information, but it is, oh, perfect, okay. So the ELA and the math are really used because that's where we have our most data, and screening factors vary, but really what we're looking for is that above grade level performance in at least 3 of our screening measures. And then if students are identified from those 3 measures, or if they're even like a little bit borderline, we reach out to the classroom teacher and ask them to fill out information on the student on some of the other factors that we really can't see through that data, which I'll show you in a minute what that kind of looks like. So this is the chart that shows the different measures we're using at each grade level. So again, you can kind of look at that. By the time they are taking the NJSLA, which was the PARCC exam, we use that data. We use Linkit, obviously, to get that information on the students. And again, we're looking for 3 of those measures for them to be above grade level. And then this is what we send to the teachers. So if the students qualify, or again, if they're kind of that borderline, we send it to the teachers, and they determine whether the students would qualify based on other characteristics. Okay, so these are just some of the things that we're asking them about. Oh, and I think that's the last slide for this, so we'll transfer to the other one. Does anyone have any questions for me or anything I can relay to Mrs. Alphone about this?
How are children or parents notified that they have been identified?
They receive a letter in the mail, and then usually, like I said, the classroom teachers are notified as well, but they do receive a formal letter from Mrs. Shaw. Alphone. Let's get used to that. Yeah, and then I'll turn it over, I'll introduce them. They can kind of talk about, after they're identified, like what happens next, and then if you guys have any other questions, we can answer those. So this is Ms. Lindsay Toplewski from Ocean Avenue and Harmony School, and Ms. Lauren Velez from Thompson. So I'm going to turn over to you guys to, and I'll bring up any of the videos so you can have a friend.
Hi, I am Lindsay Tobolewski. I am the Ed Tech Specialist at Harmony and Ocean Avenue. And in answer to your question about the meeting, we typically in the elementary school will pull all of the students to meet, first to introduce myself and what our role would be with the student and what the process will be from there, what exactly they're getting pulled for, how we're going to work on a project, so that way they are introduced, and then we send home a letter from ourselves to the parents to introduce them and tell them when perhaps we would be meeting with them, how long, and our expectations for them. So this year in Gifted and Talented, I am very excited about all of my projects that I'm working on with the students because it is their passion. They are extremely interested in everything that we are doing, which makes it that much greater of a time that we spend together. I have students who, like Ms. Morales, like Wendy said, that just want to build something. They want to just take their hands and make something out of it. I have other students who are interested in, for instance, I have a 4th grade student at Harmony who just is passionate about books. She is passionate about the idea that she only gets to attend the library once a week and that she's finished with that book by the time the day is over, and how she wants to build in Harmony or revamp Harmony's space, that we can make a maker space that can combine the library with the computers and more of a usable space for her, that she can really build her passion. And we're going to write a grant. She's going to be speaking at a PTO meeting, and she's just so passionate about it that really drives her forward in her project. I have other students who are just really interested in other topics such as space, the Rubik's Cube. One student is very interested in the algorithms of the Rubik's Cube and wants to develop his own algorithm to make a similar project of the Rubik's Cube. One of my students, I don't know if this is Sophia. She is a student at Ocean Avenue School, and her passion is dreams. She is intrigued by waking up in the morning and understanding what she just dreamt about. So
My project in GMT this year is I'm going to make a poster board on dreaming because it really is an interesting topic and scientists don't know a lot about it. I'm going to be recording dreams from my peers and adults whom I know and interpreting them and seeing if I can find any information.
So Sophia is one student who will be working on this by herself, while we have other students who will be doing something similar, like our students at Leonardo, who are working in a group project because they all have similar passion.
We are doing our GNT project on creating a school-wide newspaper. The newspaper will be published on our school website for the whole community to enjoy.
We believe that this newspaper will improve our community by strengthening communication.
There will be student guest writers, information about school events and staff interviews,
And current world events and community events.
So that's just a snippet of some of the videos that we have here. I know that we're going to link all the rest of the videos. But a typical day of an elementary school GMT student is we start off back in October just meeting with the students. What is your passion? Let's brainstorm. What are you interested in? And then we talk about all the ways that we can take that interest and that passion and give it a purpose. Okay, so you are interested in drawing. How can we then take that to be a purposeful thing? Maybe you're interested in drawing and we'll make greeting cards for people in a nursing home. Maybe you are really passionate about coding and you want to create something. One of my students wants to create something about a fish food dispenser because she is struggling at home getting everything accomplished and remembering her chore of feeding the fish. So she's using the robotic aspect of that. Typically in October we brainstorm, then we start to build our passion, and then they become the expert in that topic. So that's really where they get infused in the classroom, because in the beginning they need to know everything about that topic. So for instance, we will infuse in the classroom, they're constantly reading in their reading workshops, so they might be pulling out a nonfiction book about dogs or robots or fish. And then even during their center time, they have time to maybe be working on their presentation or doing other additional steps to build that project.
Okay, so again, my name is Lauren Velez, and I'm the Ed Tech Specialist at Thompson. We take a very similar approach where, our projects with our students are passion-based. And I wanted to kind of encourage students this year to take it to the next level. So in the middle school, we have 2 cycles of G&T. So they'll meet with me for 2 separate marking periods. This first marking period, I've decided that, I want students to move away from, their passion project about soccer and saving the sea turtles, because they've just been done over and over. So I decided that we want to take a global approach, and I want to expose them to the world. And hopefully through these experiences, they will kind of get ideas in their mind of what else they can do and what can drive some of their passion projects. So we are working on some collaborative projects. We are communicating with classrooms around the world. We're using a platform called Flipgrid, where we are learning just about food and culture and traditional games and what school and life is like in different places. And the kids were like beyond excited that there were students from Russia that responded to us. And just seeing like different cultural foods that different people are cooking and making, and just making those connections. We also are working, we're collaborating just in conversation, but then on the side we're also working on different projects. So a couple of students have decided that they want to do a VR experience, and they are creating VR to show other students like what life is like here and comparing it to what life might be in other places of the world. One of the most recent that just kind of came together the other day when I met with them is these 4 students. They decided that there's this project called Heart to Heart, and it's teaching you to love and be friends. So they decided that the 4 of them are going to research different people. One is going to be from the United States, one is from Russia, one is from Australia, and I forget the 4th place that they chose, but they're going to write a children's book. And there's going to be 4 kids, and they're all going to be 10 years old, and they're all going to go through their daily routine of school, but they want to show how our routines are different. So I thought that was like incredibly awesome, and what they don't know yet is that in a couple weeks, I'm going to introduce them to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and one of them is quality education. So I'm going to show them how these things are important in our global world. And that's really the goal. At the end of the first cycle, I'm going to introduce them to these 17 goals, so that way when we get to cycle 2, they can develop a project that is related to one of those goals and kind of make, take action and make an impact on a larger level than just, in the confines of our building. So I have a couple. These are actually, these are actually the girls that are doing the children's book.
So we're using iEarn to be able to communicate with people around the world and share our interests and find similarities. And we're able to connect with people and get to know them. And we're waiting for responses right now, but we're excited to see what they will say when they do respond.
On iEarn, you can comment on some groups that you're interested in. Like there's one called Beauty and the Beast, and we commented on it, and we saw different pictures and comments about people around the world. So it's like a good way to see what other people are interested in that are not just
And we were able to see different sorts of animals and interests in food that were from different parts of the world and learn new things.
So it's just a great way to communicate and connect with other people to see what it's like in places.
So we're using.
So one of the projects was about a Beauty of the Beast. It's different animals in different places of the world, and they're learning about animals that they never even knew existed.
So in GNT, we're using a blog platform where we can communicate with other people from around the world. So one of the things that I did in the platform was this thing called Global Food Show and Tell. And basically what you did in it is you tell people about the types of food that you like and that's important to your country, and then you all just try to talk about it. Also you can give each other recipes. Another blog on iEarn is Heart to Heart, where we can talk to people about how things affect them.
So, there's a lot of different things that are going on right now, and actually they're really excited because this week on Thursday when we meet, I'm pulling all of my GNT kids together. There's 20 of them, and we are going to participate in a mystery Skype. So what that means is we're going to go live and Skype with another classroom somewhere around the world, but they don't know where they are. Neither class knows. And so they have to use questioning about geography and things like that to try to guess, back and forth yes and no questions, 20 questions, to try to figure out where they are. And they're so beyond excited for that. So, that's the approach that we're taking. Hopefully to get them to think outside the box and do things that are really meaningful and important that they're proud of.
So all these videos are going to be combined by Mr. Rotolo and will be available very soon on our next newsletter. So you'll get to see all the different schools represented. This is just a teaser. And we also just want to mention that these types of projects are going on all over the district for all levels of students. They're called Spark Projects, Passion Projects, Genius Hour. This really gives us the opportunity to work with these students at a much higher level. So instead of usually a child choose something they're passionate about, but as you heard here, they're being now challenged through GNT to really step it up to the next level. And I was actually, Dr. George and I were at Nut Swamp the other day at a kickoff for a 4th and 5th grade Genius Hour. The entire 4th and 5th grade is doing it. And the students that are in GNT become the leaders of that. So they were the ones helping the other kids because they're now kind of the experts at this type of project. So So while many of our students are doing these are truly our student leaders who are helping to guide their peers in this type of learning, which is something that, we are promoting throughout the district at all levels. But again, you'll see how, every year we do this, the kids are they want more, and they want to be challenged more. So that's kind of the role of these
And
amazing
I can really
educators here.
speak quickly.
Challenge
One
them.
of my G&T students from last year, she emailed me, and I should share it with you, because she emailed me and said, Ms. Velez, for my advisory project, I want to do something with the global goal. I forget which one it was, but I was just like, I think it was gender equality. And I was like, oh my God, yes, come to my office. Like, we'll talk and we'll figure something out. So it just kind of shows you how it, those who are passionate will kind of continue on their own, and it just inspires them.
I just want to add too, sometimes we say, well, this is what's happening in Different and Talented, but we're also doing this across the district. But just to kind of, connect for you our strategic planning, our district goals, and how we know that, I've already had the opportunity this year to go in and observe and participate in the evaluation process personally with almost, I think I'm down to 3 left principals to do. And so this is a district goal for all students, personalized learning, not just our gifted and talented students. So when I'm doing my walkthroughs, that's part of what the principals show me, is the evidence of how we're doing this across the board with all of our students. Because it is very important for those students that are ahead of grade level to have the opportunity when they finish work early to continue their learning process, so they get the opportunity to learn for the full period, just like the student who's on grade level. It's also very important for the student who's on grade level or below grade level to have the opportunity to really connect our learning initiatives, the curriculum, to their own personal interests, so that they can close those gaps, or so that they can participate in exceeding grade level work. So that's really why it's a district goal for all students.
And it's nice because we're working on the K-5 social studies curriculum right now. I'm new to this. I'm new as the supervisor of social studies this year, as well as technology I've been for the past couple of years. But it's nice to see the K-5 social studies. We're working on embedding this as part of the social studies curriculum officially. So there's like a designated time, which is always an issue in education, is there's not enough time in the day to do everything we want to do. So it will be a designated part of our day that all students will have an opportunity, because if you think about the standards you're hitting during this, it's literacy, obviously, it's cross-curricular, but social studies especially, with civic engagement, teaching our kids how to be responsible citizens of their communities, and the research that goes into this. These kids are researching, and the research is really important as little historians and researchers. So it's beautifully kind of embedded right into our new K-5 curriculum, which will start in September. Yes.
Do you have a sense of the percentage of kids that are involved in the program at the school level? Only because I feel like every time this comes up, parents can tell you anything about IEPs and in-class support, but the gifted and talented program is such a mystery to people that they ask a lot of questions, and we don't have the answers to give them.
That's a great question.
Right now, resource to direct.
I don't know the percentage off the top of my head, but I will definitely find that out. There is information on the website on Gifted and Talented. I'm not sure if it answers that particular question, but
area. If my memory serves me correct, I think there's a tab.
we could pull up the
I know she
GNT
was working
page.
on
There is a
developing
page.
it, now that it's kind of fully launched after last year's initial.
Yes.
2 quick things. I was just curious, does the formality of the G&T program shift when you get to 7th and 8th grade in middle school? Because I know then the honors comes into play. Is there still a separate G&T opportunity if a kid is not in honors, or?
There's advisory.
Okay, so
Which,
it's,
like Ms. Velez said, her 7th grader now no longer has a designated GNT period,
Okay.
but is still seeking her out as the specialist to continue
Okay.
the work during their advisory period. So it really is kind of a self-motivated type of thing. It's not a formal
Okay.
program by 7th and 8th grade.
Okay. And then the second thing, actually, Denise just whispered to me, so I'm kind of just going to piggyback. when I was in the G&T program in Middletown a million years ago, they actually bused us to Harmony. So I got to meet a bunch of kids from the other Middletown schools. So I actually made friends from other parts of Middletown that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to. I'm just curious if as you're doing some of these virtual Skype things, you can actually bring together the different schools within Middletown and let them converse so that these kids get to meet other kids from other parts of their town, in addition to other parts of the world.
We have done a lot of that. For instance, like at the elementary school level, I know we have experts in certain topics versus other topics. And we have done like Google Hangouts for them to be able to almost interview each other as another form of their research, because we all don't know everything, but you know, we need to find that one person who can give that extra piece of information. So we have done Google Hangouts in just the very most informal way of just an interview. Hey, could you tell me a little bit more about this? I heard you play this instrument and I wanted to learn more about it. That kind of thing. So.
That's a really good suggestion. It's something we've talked about going into year 2 of this program, of how to better connect the kids and have our older kids be mentors to our younger kids, which is actually one of the projects that one of Lindsay's students is identified as being her passion, is working with the younger kids. So it's not only cross grade level, but across schools, like you said. And yeah, that's a great suggestion and something we definitely want to increase.
One of our 5th grade students, her project is she really wanted to take the idea of the bottle cappers at the high school level and bring it as a peer leader for herself in the 5th grade to the kindergarten students. She said, you know, I have younger siblings and I realized they're having arguments over things like you stole my crayon, and we're, you know, that kind of thing, and I want to be able to give them the tools to do that. So they're having a whole interview process of what makes a peer leader, what things are appropriate to teaching kids, you know, and that type of thing. They're willing to give up their lunch, and they're going to have, you know, small meetings during lunch that they're going to teach each other how to interact. But they did that because they watched the bottle cappers come in when they were older and got that experience for it.
A question that had been asked to me in our last meeting. How subjective or objective is the criteria-based selection for the children in the G&T program? Some of the parents, we have some very active kindergarten and 1st grade parents at our school who were very concerned that their children weren't chosen for the gifted and talented program, and they wanted to know, is this a numbers-based off of some test? Is it subjective as to the teacher? If the teacher doesn't like me or my child, is that not going to allow them to be? I know what the reasoning is, but they wanted to know how actually objective it is.
Yeah, so the initial screening is numbers. It's black and white. So if they meet 3 of the 4 criteria and they're above grade level in 3 to 4, then the name is sent to the teacher. The only time, like, the teacher is then asked just to confirm certain other skills, like the student is motivated, that they're keeping up with their classwork, because we know kids can be very high level, but maybe they're not finishing their work during the school day because they're just, maybe the maturity is an issue, in which case we don't want to distract them from, you know, learning the curriculum. But this part is very black and white, and like I said, then the teachers really just give us their feedback on some of those soft skills that we can't really measure through this, or for students
that initial assessment is a state-run test, correct?
They're district
district and state, depending on the grade level.
Once you get to the upper elementary, 4th, 5th, and 6th, then it's multiple measures between district assessments and state assessments. Because there are no state assessments in the K-2, so.
But we're not using like teacher-made assessments. They're assessments used by, you know, many districts across the state. Any other questions?
Can you make that slide available to them?
The whole slide deck.
Already linked.
Yep.
Right, I said that to you. All this is already linked, so that,
Yeah, it's on the, it should be on the agenda, the updated agenda.
on the agenda, yep.
Yeah, if you go on to the
Linked up.
updated agenda, you should see a link to this, to Mrs. Morales and, there isn't on this page.
Is it hyperlinked maybe?
It's hyperlinked.
It's hyperlinked
so
on-
the digital agenda.
Yep.
So just question 2, how many kids with IEP are part of the program? Because I know it comes to a few parents, I know there's not many kind of would meet both criteria, but just kind of curious what those numbers are. And, you know, if, you know, maybe a child doesn't fit all those 3, but they really excel in one area, would they be considered, is also kind of a question. And then I know the peer modeling, I know my son has personally benefited from it. He has autism and he does really well when matched with some of the G2 kids in his class. So I strongly, you know, encourage that to be continued and what they do. but I just know that you occasionally get asked from parents, and if you have those answers.
Yeah, I don't off the top of my head, but I have written down, I'm not sure how many IEP students we do have currently, but certainly if they meet the criteria, you know, obviously that wouldn't hold them back. Like I said before, if there's certain things that are borderline, we do, if there's, like, let's say they meet 2 of the measures and the third one was a little bit borderline, but then the teacher's like, no, this student is a lead. We want to make sure students are at grade level in math and literacy before we start, you know, pulling them aside to do other types of enrichment activities.
And I also think that goes back to what I was saying earlier about the amount of time that they would have to do that in the school day, number one. But number two, why it's really important for us, no matter what level they are, to make sure that students are having the opportunity to direct their own learning, to participate in educationally driven programs and lessons where they can lead in their learning, they have voice in their learning, they have choice in their learning. So help them close that gap and get to that place where they, because, you know, there are so many students that are not their best version of themselves in kindergarten, first grade, not to mention 8th grade, or even freshmen in high school. As a former high school principal, I was saying, Dr. Carty, I bet you would agree with me, the most amazing, and I had the opportunity to work on all 3 levels, elementary, middle school, and high school. The most magical thing about being a high school educator, whether that's a teacher or an administrator, and I did both, is those kids that come in 9th grade, and they just don't have it all yet. And sometimes it doesn't happen, the light really doesn't go on until senior year. And those are the greatest gifts to everyone else around them. But what we're trying to create is lifelong learners. What we're really focused on is lifelong learners. So everybody has to have the process for that type of growth to get to that individualized learning that are the skills necessary to lead to lifelong.
I know you said you identify students each year, and if they weren't in as 3rd graders, they may not
Twice a year, yeah.
return as 4th graders or whatever. But the projects that they work on over the course of the year, are they assessed somehow on their report cards, or how are?
There is no assessment on the report card.
No, there's no grade attached to this.
No.
No.
It's about self-discovery, and we want them to be not afraid to take risks and kind of do that fail forward, and you know what I mean. And I think if we start doing that, we're gonna get students who just want to follow the rules. And I think the rest of their school days like that, and for the most part, not the rest of it, but a majority of it is that I think that this is their opportunity to kind of explore without that worry that, you know, they might be evaluated negatively for trying something new that they're not going to succeed at
But
necessarily.
the tech specialist is somebody there who's like coaching them and at
Yes.
least giving them feedback throughout the process.
And I just wanted to wrap up this portion of the meeting by saying that this was an outgrowth of our current strategic plan that's soon to expire. This was one of the activities or goals, you know, kind of formalizing our G&T program and expanding upon the opportunities that students had. Because prior to this, it was kind of really on the classroom teacher to provide differentiation and opportunities for students. And that's a lot, you know, on the teacher to manage in a formalized manner such as this, as you can see, and to coordinate those opportunities for cross-school or cross-grade level articulation and sessions. So the fact that we formalized this and our educational technology specialists as teacher leaders in the building work in collaboration with the classroom teachers and across the district, across, you know, our 15 elementaries and middle schools has really, I think, enhanced the opportunities for the students. So I'm fortunate we're all fortunate. We're grateful that this was something that was identified by the community in our last strategic planning process as a goal, and we embrace it as much as the community. So, and it's always evolving. You know, we never pretend to have it perfected at this point, or it probably never will be, because it's always evolving, and we're always trying to improve upon it.
All right, so let's close this out, and in the interest of time, we'll move on to the 8th grade PSAT pilot administration. Mr. Fury, I know you're here. I don't know if Mrs. Russo.
Yep.
She's here.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Happy New Year. Okay, we just want to share with you, this is going to be very brief, we just want to share with you a new opportunity that we're presenting to our students this year for the first time. How many of you are 8th grade parents? Anybody? Okay, so you know what I'm talking about already, possibly you got the letter.
Thanksgiving weekend, we sent a letter out to all the parents of all the 8th graders in our district offering them this opportunity. In order to better ensure that our students, as they move into high school, are challenged at the appropriate level of their capabilities, in speaking to other districts about some of the things we do, we thought we in Middletown would offer our students the opportunity to take the PSAT that is designed specifically for 8th and 9th graders. Okay, so it's a different version of the PSAT than the one that all our 10th graders take. So to get more data in order to determine whether or not placement is appropriate. It's just one more piece of data. It's optional, it's voluntary, it's a pilot, it's the first time we're doing it. We want to see if it is useful for us. The district is paying for it, of course. So I sent letters to all of the principals, sent letters that I wrote to all of the 8th grade parents in the district, and that was Thanksgiving weekend, and the responses were due right before the holiday break. And at this point, 278 out of 773 8th graders have responded they'd like to take the test. That's 36%. Higher than I really expected, so that's a good thing. They're curious. So all the details about the test itself are found online at the College Board website. I sent that link in the letter. Of course, there'll be a score in, what do you expect, reading, writing, and mathematics, just like all standardized tests would be. Okay, so if you want to look at the details, the letter I sent is linked to the agenda this morning. So if you click on that link, you'll see the letter. And in that letter, you'll see the link to more detailed information about the test, etc. Okay, Mr. Curry, did you want to add anything before I...
Yeah, no, I just think it's a, as a father of a son who took it in 8th grade, I think it's a great opportunity, just with anything, practice, makes perfect, and the more you practice, the better you become. And certainly, my son had taken it in 8th grade, which only helped him in regards to that. There is content on there that your son or daughter may not have learned yet, but it's a great opportunity to sit down for an exam that they'll be doing for APs, they'll be doing for the SATs when it counts, even the PSAT when it counts, and of course, in college when they go on to do that. So it's an invaluable piece, not only just for seeing where your son or daughter is, but also just the idea of practicing, sitting down for that exam.
Will it preclude kids from taking certain classes?
Excuse me?
Will it stop kids from, if they want to register for an AP class, but...
One of the questions I did get from the parent who received the letter was, are they mandated to take this if they want to be in honors? No. No, it's totally voluntary at this point, and many students volunteer to do so.
In fact, we were looking for the opposite. Oftentimes, students are intimidated to challenge themselves going into high school with an honors or an AP level course. So if a student participates in this test and is identified as someone who is ready, the guidance counselor is going to meet with them and their parents and say, you know what, you should be considering challenging yourself. So this wasn't meant to be an exclusionary process, but more to include students who may be reluctant if they're on the fence about, like I said, challenging themselves.
According to the College Board, the test measures what they're learning, sees if they're on track for college, and tells them where they might need some improvement.
Are they offering this to 9th grade? I feel like we skipped a grade. So
by the time we give this in 8th grade, it's already March in the spring. The year is ending. They'll be taking it in 10th grade. So it's like, how much do you
They
want to
take it
test?
again as 10th graders.
Right. In 10th grade, they take the regular PSAT.
Right.
So it's a lot of
But
testing.
to your point of practice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any other questions about it? It's 2 hours and 25 minutes long, plus pre-admission, filling out all the forms, which we're going to try to minimize by doing the bulk registration ahead of time. So 3 hours and 15 minutes on a Saturday morning. So yes, the first test offered is going to be at Thorne on March 7th. At 8 o'clock in the morning, 8 to 11:15.
8 to 11:15.
8 to 11:15, all right? And the test will be 2 hours and 45 minutes of that. 2 hours and 25 minutes, my apologies, of that, okay? And then a week later, on March 14th, the test will be offered at Thompson. So those are the 2 locations we decided, and many of the Bayshore students signed up too and picked one of the schools that they would. So from all 3 schools, we have students that signed up.
We do live in New Jersey, so there's a snow date of the 21st as well.
Yes, we have a snow date, which we hope we won't have to use.
And students could have registered for any school. It didn't have to be their home school, obviously.
Right.
And
Some
the principals are
Thompson
organizing
did.
administration, and teachers will be working with the principals on those Saturdays and proctors. So we're working through the College Board process right now of registering the 2 schools as official testing sites, because they've never been onboarded with College Board in that manner yet. Our high schools obviously have, because they administer the PSAT and the SAT, but it's a process.
It is. It's our first time through that process, but we'll get there.
Is there a large cost associated with the district?
$12 per test, and if a child doesn't show up, we still have to pay $4. If they sign up and don't show up, but it's $12 per test. $12 per test. for this test. We're doing there's two options, paper and pencil or the digital version of the test. We're doing the paper and pencil just like the high schools do for the PSATs. We're following their lead on that. Practice.
So should parents set up a college board account so they have access to that information?
You don't have to for this because we're registering for this. You will have to do that moving forward. You have to have a college board account to register for the
But wouldn't it
SATs and the
behoove them
APs,
to do it
etc.
so that this information's there?
I guess you could. I guess you could. You will be able to access their results afterwards. Remember, this information is just for the student, their parent, and the school. It doesn't go to the colleges. It doesn't go on their transcripts. That was another question I get from parents. So, in case you were wondering.
You don't have to register, you don't have to create a College Board account to register for the test. That's
No,
what
we'll
Mrs.
do that.
Caruso was explaining.
It just seems that it would be
But if you want to
easier
access their account and be able to access their scores,
Right.
it'll become a longitudinal, it'll become almost like a data warehouse.
Right.
By the time they start this as 8th graders, this will show up. Then in 10th grade, when they take the PSAT, that will be there. And then moving forward, when they take any AP exams or their SATs, that will also show up under their profile.
Just don't lose, if you do register and get an account, don't lose your account information, your sign-on, your password, because they do not want you to create another account later. We dealt with that with the AP test this year, with people who had lost their information. So keep it close, keep it safe. Anything else? Any other questions anybody has? Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Let's see how it goes. We're looking forward to it.
And we'll move ahead to the update on strategic plan. I don't see Mrs. Rogers or Mr. Little, so I'm assuming Dr. George will just
Yes,
take the
please.
reins.
So I also included, I gave it as a handout here too, just for you to get a summary of the latest information that we talked about at our reorganization meeting board about where we are in the process as we prepare for our meeting on February 12th. February 12th is the next strategic planning meeting. Our committee, the strategic planning committee led by Mr. Little, is going to be having a discussion this week with Schoolhouse Strategies to begin the planning of the of our next forum, and we're trying to, of course, take into account all the information that we've received to this point, both from the public presentations, the information that's been shared with us, as well as the now that we've been able to do the keyword searches on the close to approximately 10,000 written responses. So kind of combining all that and looking at all that. And so what I've shared with you today is just to giving you an idea of, through those searches, what the data is telling us. So over 1,300 responses related to enrollment and class size. That's kind of putting all of them together. You saw the raw data on some of those questions. The last presentation really focused on questions 9, 1, and 2 and question 10. Now this is a compilation of all of the questions and where we are. The second largest response was around curriculum. And that had, you can see the number of times that appeared, and then mental health. It's important to note when you put funding and facilities together, and those are, that's a pretty significant number as well. And I think that we include state aid funding, and we're going to get ready prior to our next strategic planning meeting. We're going to have our first budget presentation. That is strategically done, because I think, and we really will encourage people to participate, and we have 4 workshops set up on the budget, 4 meetings set up with the public on the budget. I think those went really well last year, where you get to really, the board and the administrative team interact. They let you know really where we are in that budget process, where we've come. We've already had a process by the end of December where we as an administrative team sat down and met with all the principals, central office administrative team, talking about what the budget's going to look like, how we're going to build it, what the curricular focuses are going to be, what the overall budget focuses are going to be. So that having the opportunity for the public to hear that, where we are with the budget, prior to our next strategic planning forum, we think is really important, and that's, of course, going to be part of the process. So when you look at these things, also what the public has said in the responses, whether they be in the written responses or just the regular regular responses to the survey. It's also important to know that we're taking this into account as we build the budget and what the priorities should be about what our community thinks, what our school community thinks about that. So I also want to point out, I think it's really important to point out for us some real strengths that that were pointed out in here. So when you look at the community validating what you're doing in curricular programs, whether that's about technology at 85% or college preparation or security, in a time where security is a really big conversation, right, for all of us, and there has never been a bigger concern, but highlights about our mathematics education, English, most notably, I think co-curricular activities, elementary, middle school environments and what they see. These were all, I think, important validations of our staff, of all of our staff, our teachers and our paraprofessionals, and support staff, and our administrative teams. So I thought it was really important to share that. And then at the end, reflectively, we really look at the areas where, there were higher numbers as it relates to maybe perceived as not necessarily a strength for the district. All of that reflectively are areas that we're going to be looking at. So next steps for us as it relates to strategic planning, twofold to really summarize. I think it's important for that budget meeting first. And the committee over the next couple weeks is really going to build what Form 3B is going to look like. I expect that it's going to have a high focus on the enrollment, the class size, the funding, because that's what all of you have commented are areas that we really need to focus next. Yes?
So the February 12th meeting, I didn't see it yet on the calendar. Is it at North or South, and do you know the time?
I don't know if the venue's been chosen yet. I'll double check that, make sure it's on the strategic planning site. We share.
Okay, can I just put...
I'll make sure it's on.
Yeah, oh, okay, perfect, so that people know what to expect. And I know to the extent that Schoolhouse or you guys can communicate out like a week in advance, kind of exactly what the structure will be, so that folks know, when there'll be public comment and what format will they need to give public comment, et cetera. Because I think there was kind of a ships passing in the night thing that happened for the last one, and folks didn't fully understand what was the purpose of 3A. And then they thought it was going to be something, and then it was more of a presentation than an open mic type setup. So I think people are looking for an open mic. So if that's not at 3B, make sure people know that and let them know when the open mic portion will happen, and kind of in response to any of the ideas that are floating around.
The board's been having that conversation. Part of that conversation is the first one was a complete open mic.
Yep.
And at every presentation, we've had at least an hour.
Public comments,
so we can't say that it wasn't an open mic, but I would say that the board is well aware that the community wants a strong, I think the board has a good finger on the pulse of where the community is, and they know that the public wants a significant portion to be able to reflect on that. And I think that's exactly what the discussions this week with the committee and Schoolhouse strategies are going to be on how we can accomplish that.
To structure that.
I've heard that from John, I've heard that from Pam, I've heard that from Joan, I've heard that from pretty much all the members of the board, that's what the expectation is. And I fully expect we're going to be able to deliver on that.
Good, thank you.
And we'll have that agenda up a week early like we did the last time. But like you said, we just want to make sure that everybody's clear with what the goals are and how it's going to be delivered.
Yes.
Too.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I got it. Great. See you.
Okay, any other questions before we close out this part of the agenda? All right, so let's go on to the school calendar. Awesome.
All right, so I handed out a copy of a draft. That's where we are right now. We had our committee meeting this week. We had parents and Ms. Christone participating in that as well. We had a good meeting yesterday.
Yes.
Yesterday. So two things here. One is where we are with the draft calendar. This will be posted when the agenda goes up, so I feel comfortable seeing you. This is what will be posted. This was the draft that came out of the committee. And then the other thing there as well, I guess I don't have a copy of it, but it's kind of the breakdown. Here it is. I do have it. what the survey said. You know, we had talked about that at our previous meeting, that we were doing that, what the process was like. The board, you know, asked for us to have a discussion here at Pick First. We took that to administrative team and said, hey, listen, we got such great data for what we do with strategic planning. Let's create a survey. Let's get input on that. And I think when you look at this, you know, the data that we got back from our parent community and our school community, which was over 2,000 responses, over 2,100 responses actually. So we got a significant amount of feedback, and we really tried, can't say that we're surprised, because we've heard a lot of this information before at Pick, and when we vote on our calendar and from our board members, you know, these were areas that we should focus on from the board members. But based on the information we got, we really tried to get students in as quickly as possible right at the beginning of the year, right? So that was part of you know, one of the major goals that we think that we accomplished with that, with us starting with staff on the 1st and having students by the 2nd. And that's a difficult thing to accomplish, quite honestly, because there's a lot of professional development that happens at the beginning of the year. There's also has to be a significant amount of work that goes in by our teachers, right? Preparation of their rooms, review of IEP plans, everything as it relates to security, trainings that have to happen at the beginning of the year. One thing we started last year that's really helped us to accomplish getting our students in earlier this year is that our teachers complete a significant amount of work that they're able to do online in a flexible schedule. There's a lot of mandated trainings. It's very clear to us exactly how much time they're going to spend doing those, that they're really focusing on and working on and completing in a short time frame from just before the school year, the first couple weeks into the school year. So I think that's an important point. One of the real focuses of this is getting out as early as we possibly can. So that also played into how we did the schedule and how we came up with the schedule. Another focus that we've been able to do is limit those full PD days by actually having those extended days at the end of the school day. And I know for, you know, the school community, we've heard that what we call half days, which from the staff standpoint are really not half days, because instead of 6.5-hour days, they're 4.5-hour days for them. And then for them, we're extending the learning, and the PD has to happen. You know, next year is a big year for professional development for us. The new elementary mathematics adoption. It's also going to be a significant driving force in our budget, as well as in humanities, we're doing social studies, right? So those are going to be major drivers in our budget that we're going to be talking about in the near future. As relates to put all of that, it's a lot of PDA that has to happen. So we try to balance all those things. I think that's what the calendar reflects. We got a positive feedback from the committee when we reviewed it all, and we were able to move forward with this draft. Are there any questions?
It's more, I guess, of a comment. I know the elementary school, the week of conferences, the early dismissals, I know that there's different elements of it, and I feel like the survey question was a little bit vague. I think people didn't quite know what to think. Like, they were like, you mean you get rid of conferences entirely, or you just get rid of the half days and do the conferences at night? I don't think people fully appreciated it. And I know as a parent, it's valuable to be able to talk to the teachers, but it's a 10-minute conversation. So I know I reach out whenever I feel like I need to talk to my kids' teachers, and I know the teachers reach out to me when they feel like I need to talk about my kid. And I feel like the burden that's put on the teachers to prepare for, in the case of like the departmentalized 4th and 5th grade teachers, 50 to 60 kids worth for that 60 10-minute conversations is enormous. And it's at a time of year when we already have missed some of November, it's like you're halting them from really getting going for December. Did you survey the elementary teachers to find out what their opinions were on the half days?
Yeah, we did ask the staff to participate in this, but as you often do, you prompted a discussion that we had at that committee meeting, and I appreciate it. So what we talked about there, I brought this up. I think, number one, it's a hardship for working parents. Coming right out of Thanksgiving week for a lot of businesses and a lot of working folk, that week of Thanksgiving is not a big week at work, but the next week really revs up. And then, so on top of that, you have this significant number of days, the whole week basically, where they're on a half-day schedule, which makes it hard for them to take care of their parental responsibilities and take care of their work schedules. So what we talked about, even prior to coming into that, is that was a number, like in the other surveys, where still it shows, obviously the responses indicate there's some discourse there, right? So what we're going to do is form a committee this year, and to really look at this for a change for next year.
Okay.
So I think those conferences can be really valuable when necessary. When is it necessary? It's necessary when a parent thinks it's necessary. That's number one. It's necessary when the student or the teacher thinks it's necessary. So anybody in that process that thinks it's necessary, then we should come together, right? But you brought up another really important part of it. When we do everybody in the same way, at the same time, it limits the amount of time we can speak, right? So if a parent wants a meeting, they can have a meeting anytime during the year, right? But let's say sometimes we just need to be prompted, right? So if a parent or the teacher suggested in this time frame in the fall or this time frame in the spring, but you only have to come if it's requested by either party, any of the parties involved, then that, from our standpoint, is probably the best way to do it, because then we can extend those meetings and they can be more purposeful and they can be more effective. And efficiently, it allows them more time to do it. So that's what we're going to be discussing at the committee level, moving forward.
Just one thing again, throwing back to when I was a kid in Middletown, I remember there were progress reports that came out like mid-marking period. So if you were kind of having some trouble or whatever, your teacher would kind of send a little note home to your parents like, hey, we should probably have a talk. It was not to everybody, but it was a formality that kind of prompted then the deeper discussions. Maybe, I don't know if it would be more work or less work for the teachers to have to do a progress report for every kid, you know, to say, hey, I think we need to talk about, you know, Johnny's performance or whatever. But maybe that's an alternative where the parents still feel like there's, you know, something happening and they know if the teacher flags them, but it's a little bit more formal than just send an email if you feel like your kid might need help at this time. Right. Just an idea.
So the modernized version of that will be the unveiling of the parent portal and link it.
Okay.
Because once that happens this spring, then parents will have constant access to their students' academic progress when it comes to the district-wide and the statewide assessments, which are really targeted right at that grade level standard. You know, it's a true complement to the report cards, like the elementary report cards, as well as the middle school and high school.
Oh, perfect, okay.
Oh, so elementary is going to actually will be able to watch their progress kind of happen over the course of the year? Because as of right now, there's nothing.
On the portal, yes, through Link It, not through Power School. The parents, we're in the process of developing passwords and usernames for all 10,000 students, just about. The only students who won't be eligible is kindergarten and first grade, because there's no data in Link It for kindergartners and first graders. But for grades 2 through 12, we're in the process of working with Link It to develop those usernames and passwords and login credentials, and also an explanation, a video tutorial for parents for how to understand what they're going to be looking at, because there's going to be a lot of data on each child in that portal, including F&P results, their ICANN, their gloss, your on-demand writing prompts the students take. It's a lot. It's also Link It forms A, B, and C, so we want to make sure that no one's confused or alarmed. You know, like when the students take Form A of Link It in October, say, you know, early fall, they're really taking a test, an assessment on concepts that are year-end expectations that they should be mastering. So we don't want parents to be overly alarmed when they see a Form A result that maybe isn't what they would expect of their child. So we're really carefully creating content and videos and information to inform the community so that when they log in, they know how to understand the data that they'll be presented with.
That's a great way to show students that are above grade level but at the same time.
Yeah. In the spring, we'll be opening the portal, yeah. We've had meetings with Lincoln already. We have a committee of teachers who are working with us to also create the portal and the content for information for parents to understand how to interpret the data.
My only question was, it's similar to what Amanda was saying, is that not necessarily a progress report, but if there was a way, because we have 10 minutes in the classroom with the teachers, because there's so many people, if the teacher was able to just little snippet, send home a snippet of information for the parent so that they can know if they need or if they want to come in to have a conference, that might also help alleviate some of the pressure. Because if your child is doing well, they're on track, they're doing what they're supposed to, they're engaged, they're socially, emotionally doing well, the parent might not necessarily feel like they need to come in. They can, just email the teacher. Versus if you notice that there is an area in which they're having.
And I think that's what Dr. George was referring to. That's what this committee will be exploring.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll cover the rollout of the Lincoln formally at that PIC meeting, whatever the appropriate PIC meeting would be. We'll definitely cover the rollout for that as an agenda item. Okay, is there any more discussion of the school calendar at all?
Anything else as it relates to curriculum? Because in a minute, Ms. Speakers has to go.
Next year it is. All right, I think we're good. Why don't we move on to Middletown Friends of Diverse Learners with Dr. Safari.
Exciting things happening. On January 14th, we're showing a documentary called Untitled Chapter, which you've mentioned before. So I'm going to just kind of refer to that, but we really appreciate your support in getting the word out and encouraging people to attend. I think Rachel looked up the Common Sense Media says it's appropriate for kids 8 and older. So, feel free to bring kids who you think would be interested. And overall, I think it's going to be a valuable screening. Stephanie Cartier has agreed to present a little bit too. She just opened, or she's in the process of opening New Limits Cafe, and she's going to speak about her daughter who's in college now. So that's exciting too. We do have some social media requests. I've kind of tried to update our list, and it's really easy for us to post to groups that have approved us or let us join. We're having trouble though with a lot of the Facebook pages, and so we're gonna kind of seek out your help. I might do it. Might be easiest if I just do a follow-up email to everybody about it. And I don't have a contact for North. I seem to have most contacts for most other North and Fairview. I think I might need. So if anybody's here from there, maybe I can talk to you afterwards. And then we're still continuing our inclusion campaign online. We're putting out ideas of what other districts are doing. We're not necessarily recommending everything we're posting online, but putting things out there as ideas to get people to think about how do we do inclusion better, or how do we increase our rights, or what are different strategies we might be looking at to get better outcomes. And I'm not sharing those on here. I only share events because I don't want to overuse our contacts here. And but we would appreciate it if if you find certain things that would be relevant to your schools, to share some of that out with, and try to increase awareness of what inclusion is and how important it is, for our 12 community. We also have the Autism Slam Dunk Challenge coming up. That's a fundraiser for our special ed programs, which is very exciting. And so the details are on the page, so please get the word out about that too. We've had a productive December meeting. We talked a lot about dyslexia.
Okay, we normally have this Board of Education update, but this is the first meeting I think that Mrs. Rogers wasn't able to join us. So I don't know if there's anything, Joan, I don't know if you want to cover anything, or if there's any high points.
I didn't know she wasn't coming. So I don't know what she would want to report.
Okay.
Just to come to the strategic planning meeting on February 12th, that's important.
The budget here, the budget meetings too. The new calendar was just approved. That's probably why we don't have the date
thing up on
last week. So we'll get those up. But so those budget meetings are starting, and those public budget meetings, please attend if you can. and of course our February 12th.
Okay.
George, can I ask a question of,
Sure.
I'm sorry I didn't get to watch the video for the reorganization meeting. I know they voted on the new schedule for this year. Was there a reason given at that meeting, or do you know what the theory is behind getting rid of all the workshop meetings?
We have a significant number of committee meetings, like as you know, because we're trying to have board members attend your meeting, and we have those, because we're no longer a committee of the whole, we have those committee meetings that have to take place as well. So it's not just that there's one meeting a month, because one meeting a month obviously would be 12 meetings. There's 19 meetings on that calendar. Not included on that calendar is also the committee meetings that need to take place. So for example, in January alone, there's a committee meeting every single Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday of that month. Definitely Monday and Wednesday, I'm not sure about Thursday, but Monday and Wednesday of that month. There are committee meetings. So, there's a significant number of additional meetings that have to take place on top of the 19 meetings that are scheduled, and additional meetings that are going to have to be added as we do. For example, we didn't know exactly when the tentative adoption was going to come through from the state. Of course, after we approved it at the end of last week, there's going to be another meeting that needs to be added for the tentative adoption of the budget in March. That's one example. During the summer, there's the additional meetings that take place for the board as we come together for our retreat. So already we're at 21 with more even still to be added, and not including monthly a significant number of meetings, because each board member is on anywhere from 3 to 4 committees, so additional meetings that have to take place on top of that. So I think that was part of what the board was thinking as well.
Just as a suggestion, I'm not certainly going to plan on writing or talking to Pam about it. That I understand. My concern from a community or a parent standpoint is with one more meeting a month, I have an issue. I want to go to the Board of Ed meeting. I want to speak about it. If there's one meeting a month, I am guaranteed to be sitting at that meeting till 11:30 at night to get to speak. It's not fair to parents. I think that you have to at least consider letting parents talk at the beginning of the meeting or in the middle of the meeting, keeping parents there till 11:30 at night if it's only once a month. When you had the workshop meeting and the voting meeting, then you could go to a voting meeting and maybe you'd have a shot at talking at 9 or 9:30. But if there's one meeting, you're guaranteed you're going to be there till 11:30 at night. And for parents that have issues that aren't on the agenda, I just think it's something that they need to consider. And again, I'll reach out to Pam. It's just, I don't know, it seems...
Appreciate your perspective. The other side of that for people that are busy parents that have a lot going on is that if you want to speak on an issue and you're not sure whether the best time to speak on it is the workshop meeting or the action meeting, if you have a concern with a topic, you get an opportunity to speak on the night that it's going to be voted on as well. So you get additional consideration.
As a follow-up to that, I wasn't able to make the reorg meeting because I wasn't feeling well, but I did reach out to Pam to share my thoughts. I think what's critical is making sure that there's an opportunity for the public to comment before the vote happens. I know from attending meetings myself, a lot of times I don't know what questions I have until after I've heard the board discuss and it's been presented by administration, the board asks some questions, then I have my questions. And I always appreciated being able to then ask those questions or make those comments either at the end of the workshop or at the beginning of voting before the vote would happen. If it gets smushed, it's critical to me that the public comment happens in between. So that if after something is presented and discussed by the board, the public has a chance then to chime in or ask questions or even request that it be punted to have more research done, for example, to the next voting meeting. I just fear that there's a chance that something will be presented, discussed, and voted on, and then if there's public comment at the end of the meeting, it's already voted on. So if there was any...
But that's not how Robert's Rules of Order works.
Okay, well, I think
at every meeting, for any agenda item, that you get the opportunity to speak prior to the vote on any agenda.
Yeah, usually prior to the vote also means prior to the discussion of the board. I know when they've done the combined meetings, and I think it's worked well, it's been like you move from workshop, close it, and then open up voting so that there was the opportunity for public comment in that gap in the middle. I just want to make sure that stays. Okay.
That's the
Is there going to be a rolling, sort of like this workshop items that we're discussing in this meeting get voted in the next workshop/voting meeting? You know what I mean? Like where it's rolling? Or you're discussing, you know, going through it in your mind and making a vote in that one meeting?
That's correct. Yep.
When is the agenda? See, this is an hour. Yeah. Is that going to be posted in advance, or is it posted?
No, it's usually posted the Friday before the board meeting. Most of the board meetings are on the Wednesdays, so it's usually posted the Friday prior to that, so 5 days notice.
Okay, if there's no other concerns for the Board of Education, no, go ahead. Did everybody, no? Oh, okay. Old business, if I would appreciate if you haven't had a chance to send in your $10 stipend, as we do end of year gifts for the secretaries, that'd be lovely. New business, again, just to reiterate, May 5th meeting is going to be rescheduled. I'll have to get back to you on the new date. We're going to be updating the pick page off of the district website with a link to the MTPS Pride newsletter. If you haven't had a chance to take a look, they've had about 2.5 months old. I think they've had 11 or 12 issues so far. It's a wonderful little newsletter, and it encompasses a lot of excellent information about what's going on in the district overall. So we're going to update the pick page on the district website with the links to those newsletters. And that's pretty much it. Of course, I never remember when the next meeting is, so I never put a date. But I think it's February 2nd, I think is the next one. February 4th? Yeah, it's that first Tuesday.
The 4th,
So February 4th is the next meeting. And again, don't forget, if you have any concerns after you go back to your parent-teacher organization meetings with anything that you've learned here, please feel free to email me so I can get it out to Dr. George and we can get it addressed. If we can, we're also in need of some agenda items for February. If you come up with something at your parent-teacher meeting and you want to add it to the agenda, please let me know. We can do some talking points. And other than that, thank you very much for coming. I appreciate you taking the time, and we'll see you all February.
Thank you.
So on Friday.